Hey guys, welcome again to another Sacred Writings video. My name is Jason Damiani, and today I'm going to be going over the largest Geneva Bible ever printed. So this particular Bible, this Geneva Bible, was printed in the year 1583 and originally contained both the Old and the New Testament as well as the Apocrypha. Now, the passage that is found on this leaf is from Psalm chapter 141, verse 5, through Psalm 145, verse 21. These 5 chapters in Psalms are all Psalms of David, and as is the common theme in the book of Psalms, much praise and worship is given to the Lord. And of course, these chapters are no exception. The main themes of these chapters are David asking the Lord to give ear to his voice, a claim that God is his refuge, how his soul thirsts and longs for the Lord, how God is a rock and a fortress, and how great the Lord is. Those are basically the summations of those chapters. Highly encourage and recommend you check it out. It's a wonderful book, an amazing book. Personally, I make it a life habit and a goal to read at least a chapter of Psalm every day, along with my other Bible reading. I find it very edifying and sanctifying to be reminded of the Lord's greatness and his glory, and so these chapters certainly do that. Now, this particular Geneva Bible is a very beautiful and large Bible. The Geneva Bible is a very significant English version of the Bible and precedes the King James Bible by 51 years. This Bible, being printed before the King James, is commonly known as the noblest Geneva Bible. The name has been given to it because of its large size. As can be seen here, it measures 15 inches tall by 10 inches wide, making this a folio Bible. The Geneva Bible is similar to a study Bible like today. It's got all these notes here that correlate or correspond to a verse on the respective page. Provides a little bit of context or cross-references or any type of historical background, anything that might help the reader better understand what the text is saying. So the Geneva Bible was very cool for that aspect. Now, who printed this particular Bible? It was printed by a man named Christopher Barker, who was printer for Queen Elizabeth I. Christopher Barker was born in the year 1529 approximately and died in the year 1599. Now, he was an important Bible printer in England during the second half of the 16th century. He was a shrewd businessman who managed to acquire the Bible printing patent. Having this patent allowed him to become very successful due to the large amount of Bibles that were being printed. Barker became interested in the printing trade and is first heard of as a publisher in 1569. In 1576, he started on his career as a Bible printer, having obtained a privilege to print the Geneva version of the Bible in England. In 1577, he purchased from Sir Thomas Wilkes, clerk of the Privy Council, an extensive patent which included the Old and New Testament in English, with or without notes of any translation. The full patent granted to Barker the office of Royal Printer of all statutes, books, bills, Acts of Parliament, proclamations, injunctions, Bibles, and New Testaments in the English tongue of any translation, all service books to be used in churches, and all other volumes ordered to be printed by the Queen or Parliament. So that's a pretty impressive list of things that Christopher Barker had a patent on for printing. Of course, as you can imagine, that brought in a lot of wealth. He did come from a wealthy family, and from what I have read and understand, he doesn't give off William Tyndale vibes, a man who loves the Lord and desires and longs for the lay person, the common people, to read the Bible in their own language. Of course, William Tyndale eventually was martyred for that act, for translating the Bible into English. But I don't get those vibes by any means from Christopher Barker. It seems to be more of a business transaction going on there, not as much of a spiritual one. But Christopher Barker, ultimately, from what I understand, was a businessman. I'm willing to be corrected on that, but that's what I've read and studied thus far. Now, this particular Bible here, at least this leaf came from, was printed in London, England, as I briefly mentioned, and it makes sense, seeing as how Christopher Barker was a printer in London. Now, this Bible was printed on cotton linen paper. That's what this material is. It's a very nice and fairly durable material. There's some Geneva leaves that I have that are really flimsy and just on really cheap material, but this seems to be fairly durable and holds up very well. Due to its nicer quality, that's one of the things that's helped it kind of last as long as it has. Now, on the topic of leaves and conditions, I know there are some antiquarian book collectors or some people that have this idea that I'm going around cutting leaves out of perfectly good and antique Bibles. Please know, I don't think tearing apart books is a good thing. I don't recommend it or encourage it by any means. The only time in which I find that appropriate really is if the Bible's so dilapidated and so rough in condition and shape that rather than throwing away the book, you're helping preserve it by selling the individual leaves of the remaining parts of the book that are in still decent shape. So I personally would not buy a leaf from a Bible if I were seeing somebody cut it out. So I buy these leaves already cut from the binding. So for whatever purpose, I don't know how exactly they got like that, but as far as I'm aware, they are not being torn apart. Nevertheless, I obtained this particular leaf from a fellow Bible collector. His name is Gene Albert. He recently opened a museum in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and has been running that for over a year now. So it's a beautiful, very nice museum. If you're ever in the area, I highly recommend and encourage you to check it out. But before he began that museum in Tennessee, he had his collection here in Virginia, where I currently live, and he was moving from Virginia to Tennessee. And since he had hundreds and thousands of Bibles and books, he had tons of furniture and bookshelves and all kinds of stuff in his shop that he had to take from Virginia to Tennessee. And so him and I had worked out a deal. I can come to his shop different days of the week, help him for a few hours packing stuff up or loading up the trucks, and my currency or my payment for that was a few Bible leaves. And so he would let me pick from his collection of leaves that he had, and this is one of those leaves that I decided to get and add to my collection. So technically I didn't pay for it with money, but I did pay for it with time and effort. But normally a leaf like this for a 1583 Geneva Bible would put you at around $55 to $100. So there's a pretty decent range there, all of it of course being contingent on the passage it is, if it's a title page of a particular book of the Bible, its condition, all kinds of stuff like that will for sure add to its value. But this particular one I'd probably put in maybe the $60 to $70 range. So a very nice Bible. A great leaf for beginning collectors if you're trying to not spend a ton of money. But that's all I really have for this video. I appreciate you checking it out. Of course, stick around for those close-up shots at the end here. You can see it in better detail. Since this is an English translation of the Bible, you can even pause the video, read it for yourself. It's really cool stuff on there. And if you haven't done so, please consider subscribing to the YouTube channel, liking the video, and sharing it with others. Appreciate you guys checking it out, and I'll see you in the next one.